Hello, fourth grade. I am Mr. Avant, your math guru. I am here to teach fourth grade about decimals and mixed numbers. Mixed numbers, of course, are whole numbers and fractions, and we want to represent them as decimals. So today we are still kind of doing a little baby walk with the decimals. What we want to talk about today is we're still dealing with tenths, but I'm going to introduce you to hundredths today. And you should already know about hundredths. You know, when you talk about money, when I say $3.55, that is 55 hundredths. I talked about that in the last video. But we want you to understand too that when you add a whole number and a fraction, we're talking about this fraction in the tenths is going to be right here on the right hand side of the decimal. So in this lesson, this is going to be module 6, lesson 6. Let me make that a little darker. And it is all about showing you different ways of looking at a decimal. We're going to look at different models and different ways for you to think about it. So instead of just memorizing what a decimal is, we want you to understand what a decimal is. That's what Eureka Math is all about. It's about understanding in different ways with different models. So let's take a look at what we have. First of all, I picked a mixed number, 2 8/10, and we want to look at it as an area model. We want to look at it in place value, and we want to look at it in expanded form and in number line. Let's first go down here to your expanded form. I'm going to draw an arrow down to it. So when we say 2 8/10, what we're really saying is two whole numbers, and I'm going to use a different color for that, 2 whole numbers plus 8/10. Remember when we did expanded form with large numbers? So like 356 would be 300 plus 50 plus 6. Now we can start adding on fractions and decimals in an expanded form. So if we were going to think about this as a decimal in expanded form, we would say 2, and let's use unit form, 2 ones plus 8/10. And we'll go another step further and say 2 plus 0.8, or in other words, 2.8. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Now let's come over here to our place value. When we say 2, we're talking about 2 ones. There are 2 ones. Okay? And you're going to see this in your problem set today. So I have 2 ones here, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8/10. Now don't worry about the size of these discs. They're all supposed to be about the same. Let me make them the same. Okay? And of course there's a decimal place in between them. Alright, let's move on to the number line. On the number line, of course, we have a number line here from 0 to 3. These are whole numbers on top. If we're saying 2, I'm going to look for 2. Here it is right here. So if we're talking about tenths, that means there has to be 10 spaces in between 2 and 3, or 10 hash marks. So if we're talking about 8, I'm going to count to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There it is right there. 2.8, or 2 8/10. Right here. Okay? And let's see if that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That would be 2.9. And then 2 10/10, of course, is 3. Now, on your problem set today, they're going to be asking you, how many more tenths do you need to make a whole number? Of course, you would add 2/10 to 2.8 to get to the next whole number, which is 3. That's real simple. Okay, so far everything here is super simple. Now let's look at the area model up here. Area model. Remember area? Area is length times width. But when we're talking about fractions, we're talking about parts of a whole. So this represents one whole, this is one whole, and this is one whole, if they're all shaded in. So let's represent 1 by shading in one whole number. Okay, there's 1 because I have 10 parts filled in. 10 over 10 is 1. Let's do another one because I have 2 whole numbers. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 over 10 equals one whole number. So far we have 1 plus 1, and now we need our 8/10. Or, ooh, I messed up. That should be a 0.8. Don't forget, first place value after the decimal point is 8/10. So I need 8 parts out of 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, it's that easy to represent it as an area model. Now, let's talk about something a little more sophisticated. We're going to move on. We're going to give you a sneak peek at next week's lesson in lesson 6. What if I were to change this to 85 hundredths? What does that mean, 85 hundredths? How would I break that down? Well, one way to do that is to break it apart. So we have 2 plus, let's do expanded form here, 2 plus 8/10. Now the 8/10, of course, is representing the 8 here, and then we have 5 hundredths. Okay, so 8 plus the 5 is 85 hundredths altogether. So 8/10 plus 5 hundredths. How does that look on the area model over here? Well, you're going to have to imagine, when you get to this point, that we can turn this into hundredths by making 10 lines this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 10 by 10, that's 100 parts. And then I would have to shade in 5 hundredths more than 8/10 by simply shading in. Let me go ahead and carry this down so it looks right. I would shade in 5/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's stand back and look at this. This represents 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 85 hundredths. Guys, this is so simple. I think if you practice this and do the problem sets, and we're also going to, on our lesson, our live lesson, we're going to do a Nearpod. You can practice this, and we're also going to do a time and climb. I'm so excited. Okay, so hold tight, and we're going to look at the problem set. Okay, here we are. We're at the overhead projector now, and we're looking at our problem set. If you look at the top of the page, just like on the document you're going to get, let me focus a little bit. This is lesson 3 of module 6, and this is the problem set. We're looking at number 1. And what they're doing here is they're showing you the place value disk. And as you can see, you have to look carefully. Let me zoom in for a minute. Look carefully, because inside the place value disk we have something new. We are looking at a 0.1. 0.1. Okay? So each one of those disks represents a tenth. 1/10. And they are broken up into groups of 10 conveniently so you can count them. Remember, 10 over 10 or 10/10 is equal to 1 whole. So it says circle the groups of tenths to make as many ones as possible. So how many tenths in all? Well, if I count them in groups of 10, I have 10, 20, and then I have 28. Okay? So I would say 28 tenths is my answer here. All right? So let's move over to the next box. It says, where the arrow goes, it says write and draw the same number using ones and tenths. So if I said there are one whole number, or 10 over 10, two whole numbers, 10 over 10, and then 8 tenths left over, it would work like this. Oh, I didn't need to circle those 8 tenths. I need to circle the whole numbers. So I have two whole numbers plus 8 tenths. Now let's write that in decimal form. Remember, the first place value after the decimal point to the right is your tenths place. So I would write the decimal form as 2.8. And then the next part of the question is, how much more is needed to get to 3 whole numbers? So how many tenths do I have to add over here to my third group to make it a whole number? Naturally, I would just add 0.2 or 2 tenths. You could say or 2 tenths more. Okay? It's pretty easy, guys. I think you can answer B. Look at your groups of 10 to find your whole numbers and look at your remainder for your decimal. All right, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 says, draw disc to represent each number using tens, ones, and tenths. Then show the expanded form of the number in fraction form and decimal form. Okay? All right, so A is already done for you. You can see that they had 4 tens. That's going to be, look, there's no decimal here. That's simply 4 tens. What is 4 tens? 4 tens is 40. And there are 2 ones. That's 2. So far I have 42. And then look, these are 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. That is 1/10. I have 5 1/10 plus one more. That is 6 tenths. Look how the fraction expanded form is written. 4 times 10 plus 2 times 1 plus 6 times 1/10 is equal to 42 and 6 tenths. And then we have our decimal expanded form. We have 4 times 10, still looks the same, 2 times 1, 2 ones, and then 6 times 0.1 or 6 times 1/10. And 6 times 1/10, you're being introduced to multiplication of decimals, and a whole number would simply be 0.6. Let me show you how that looks. 6 times 0.1, okay? Whenever you are multiplying a decimal times a whole number, we can also write it this way, 0.1 times 6. You multiply just like you do with whole numbers. I multiply the ones times this place here. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 0 is 0. And you simply add up the number of places with your decimals. I only have 1, so it comes down like that, 0.6. Okay, so in other words, this is already answered, 42.6. Let's look at B and do one ourselves. So it says that we need 1/10. We need 7 ones. So I'm going to write it in groups of 5. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Oh, I'm sorry. That should be 7 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Even Mr. Avant messes up. These are ones. Okay, there's 7 ones. And then we have 5 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm simply making the disk bigger so I have room to write 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. Ooh, no. That should be 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and 0.1. That's how you represent 5 1/10ths or 5/10ths. Okay, now let's look at the expanded form. So we have 1 times 10 plus 7 times 1 plus 5 times 1/10. That is the fraction form. And of course that equals 10 plus 7 is 17 and 5/10. Did I do that right? Yes, I believe I did. 17 and 5/10. And you can also rewrite this as 10 plus 7 plus 5/10. Remember, when you multiply a whole number times a fraction, you multiply the whole number times the top. 5 times 1 is 5/10. And that also equals 17 and 5/10. I'm going to be outside the box here a little bit, but that's okay. So let's do the decimal expanded form. I'm just going to go ahead and skip this multiplication part in the parentheses and say 10 plus 7 plus 0.5, because I already know it's 5/10 written that way in decimal form, and that would be 17.5. Very, very easy. All right, let's move on to the second page. Again, we are looking at different ways of representing things. Now, C and D is a continuation of number 2 on page 1. You do those on your own. And now we have this really cool looking chart or table where you can fill in the information. And you have to kind of backtrack here. Some boxes are filled out and others are not. So let's look at what we have. So on the number line, you have to put it in the right place. And you have to label your number line. You have to give the decimal form, the mixed number form with a fraction, ones in a fraction form, expanded form, fraction or decimal, it's up to you, and how much more to get to the next one. All right, so A, it gives us the mixed number as 3 and 9/10. So I know I'm talking about a whole number and 9/10. And then they tell me I only need one more tenth to get to 4. The next whole number is 4. So I can go ahead and build my number line that's between 3 and 4. And it says it is 9/10. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right here. All right, the decimal form is going to be 3.9. And the expanded form, of course, would simply be 3 ones plus 9/10. I'm going to give both in decimal and fraction, or 3 plus 0.9. Very, 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 very simple. This is baby steps for you guys. I think you could do this. Let me pick another hard one. Let's look at D. Or let me pick a hard one. I haven't seen a hard one yet. D gives you the mixed number first, but they don't give you how much more to get to the next whole number. If this is 22 plus 2/10 is a fraction, they're trying to get to 23. So how many more tenths do I need to add to 2/10 to get another whole number? Well, 2 plus 8 is 10. I'm trying to make 10 over 10. So all I need is 8/10 or 0.8. Okay? Of course, they're putting their 0 on there. You could put 0.8 if you want to. Let me move that over, 0.8 or 0.8. All right, let's go ahead and label our number line. Our number line is going to be between 22 and 23. 22, 23, and let's figure out where 22 and 2/10 is. 1, 2. Man, this is too easy. There's 22 and 2/10. 2/10 is right there. Okay, maybe I should, up here I should say this is 9/10. Okay. Now the decimal form. Simple, 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 simple. Remember that tenths is the first place after the decimal point, so that's 22.2. Expanded form, 22 plus 2 tenths for the fraction form, and 22 plus 0.2 for the decimal. Guys, this is so easy. This is baby decimal work. Site into a 4th grade party site. So I hope you turn in your work. I hope you make it to this point, and I hope to see you there. Take care. Bye-bye.